My name is Laura Bennett. I'm 34 years old. 2 weeks ago, my family gathered in my parents' living room to celebrate their 45th wedding anniversary. There were balloons, catered food, wine glasses clinking, and at least 20 relatives squeezed into a space that suddenly felt too small for me. That's when my mother stood up, tapped her glass, and smiled the smile she saves for important announcements. "We have a surprise," she said. My father nodded proudly. "We're taking the whole family on a cruise next month. Alaska. 7 days." Everyone cheered. My younger brother laughed out loud. My sister clapped like a child. I smiled too. Then I asked one small question. "So, when do we leave?" The room went quiet. My mother didn't look at me right away. My father cleared his throat. "Oh," he said casually, "you're not coming, Laura." I thought he was joking. Someone laughed nervously. No one corrected him. "You'll stay here," my mother added, still smiling, "and watch the house. Someone needs to be responsible." 20 people heard it. 20 people watched me nod like I understood. That was the night I realized something I'd avoided my whole life. I wasn't the daughter. I was the backup plan. What my family didn't know was this. I'd been preparing my exit for 4 years. And that night, standing in a room full of people who called themselves my family, I decided I was done waiting for permission. But to understand why that moment mattered so much, you need to know where I came from. The Bennett house sits on a quiet street outside Denver. 2 stories. Perfect lawn. White fence. The kind of house real estate agents describe as stable. My father, Richard Bennett, worked for the same insurance company for 30 years. My mother, Elaine, never had a job outside the home, but she treated running the household like a full-time executive role. Appearances mattered. Reputation mattered. Silence mattered most. Then there's my sister, Claire. 2 years younger than me. Married to a tech consultant who never misses a chance to mention stock options. They have a golden retriever, a Tesla, and a baby boy whose photos cover my parents' fridge. And then there's me, Laura. Reliable Laura. Helpful Laura. I park on the street, so the driveway looks nice. I arrive early and leave last. I don't argue. I work as a freelance financial assistant. Mostly remote work. Steady, quiet income. Nothing flashy. Nothing worth bragging about. Which is why my family never asked questions. They never knew what else I was building. Family gatherings follow pattern. Thanksgiving. I cook. I clean. I coordinate. Christmas. I wrap the gifts. I label them. I stay up late fixing things my mother forgot. Birthdays. I manage the chaos, so everyone else can enjoy the party. Last year, I spent 6 hours organizing my nephew's first birthday while my sister disappeared to take a break. When I once said I might skip a dinner because of a deadline, my mother said softly but sharply, "Family comes first." Funny how that rule only applied to me. The moment everything clicked wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday night. I was alone in my parents' kitchen, washing dishes after a dinner I hadn't been invited to, just expected to help with. I realized no one had asked how my day was. Not once. That's when I understood something painful and freeing. They didn't see me because they didn't need to. For years ago, my personal life collapsed quietly. I'd been with someone for 5 years. We talked about marriage, about buying a house. One night he said, "You're great, Laura. You're just always there." Always there. Like furniture. After he left, I walked for hours and ended up in a small used bookstore downtown. In the back corner, I found an old laptop for sale. I bought it without thinking. That laptop changed everything. I started teaching myself something late at night after family favors and client work were done. I learned skills no one expected me to have. I made mistakes in silence. I improved without applause. I didn't tell my family. I didn't need their approval. Over 4 years, I built something real. Something profitable. Something entirely mine. No photos online. No name attached. Just results. There was one person who knew. My Aunt Marlene. My mother calls her the irresponsible one. She moved to Oregon years ago and opened a small bookstore cafe instead of settling down. We talk every Sunday. She was the first person to say something that reminded me I existed. "You're not invisible," she once told me. "You're just surrounded by people who benefit from you being quiet." 2 weeks before the anniversary party, she called me. "Laura," she said, "are you ready for a real opportunity?" That call led to an email that scared me enough to almost delete it, an email that would change everything. And that brings us back to the anniversary night. Candles,
Wine.
smiles, and a decision I made quietly while everyone else celebrated. Because sometimes the most powerful exits don't involve shouting. They involve planning. I stood in the laundry room long after the last guest left, folding white tablecloths that still smelled like wine and perfume. My hands moved on autopilot. My mind didn't. Something had shifted inside me that night. Not anger, not tears. Something quieter, more dangerous.
Clarity.
Around midnight, I realized I had missed a deadline for one of my freelance clients. I'd promised to send revised reports before the end of the day. My laptop was at my apartment, 20 minutes away. My mother's laptop sat open on the kitchen counter. She wouldn't mind. She never asked before using my things. I opened it. Her email was already logged in. I should have closed it immediately. I know that. But my name caught my eye before I could stop myself. Subject line: Florida trip, Laura situation. My stomach tightened. I clicked. The thread was between my mother and my brother-in-law, dated 10 days before the party. "She can stay behind with the kids," my mother had written. "Laura doesn't really have obligations. It's practical." Practical. Another message followed. "Honestly," Mark replied, "it's kind of perfect. The kids are comfortable with her, and it saves us money. She won't say no." My mother responded minutes later. "She never does." I read the messages 3 times, hoping I had misunderstood. I hadn't. They hadn't excluded me by accident. They hadn't made a last-minute decision. This wasn't thoughtless. It was planned. I forwarded the emails to myself. Then I logged out and closed the laptop like it had burned me. That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling free. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. A text from my sister. "We're leaving early tomorrow. I'll send the kids' schedule later today." "No, thank you." "No, are you okay?" Just instructions. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the email I had been too afraid to answer for weeks. From Eastline Contemporary. Subject: Inquiry about your work. I had seen it before. Read it. Closed it. Told myself people like me didn't get opportunities like that. This time, I typed back.
Yes.
"I'd love to talk." My hands didn't shake. At noon, my aunt called. She lived 3 states away and somehow always knew when something was wrong. "You sound different," she said after I said hello. "I am," I replied. I told her everything. The trip, the emails, the realization that I had been quietly auditioning for a role I was never going to be promoted from. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said, "Then it's time." "For what?" "To choose yourself. Just once." That afternoon, I made arrangements. Not dramatic ones. There was no confrontation. There were no speeches. I emailed my clients and told them I'd be unavailable next week. I booked a one-way ticket.
I packed a small bag.
That evening, my mother found me in the guest room. "You're awfully quiet," she said, watching me fold clothes. "I am tired," I replied quietly. "Well, tomorrow will be busy," she said briskly. "The children will need. I won't be here." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'm leaving in the morning." Her face tightened. "Laura, don't be difficult. We talked about this." "No," I said calmly.
You talked.
I listened. That part is over. For the first time in my life, I didn't wait for permission. I walked past her, suitcase in hand, and out the front door. Behind me, the house stayed silent. Ahead of me, everything else waited. I drove home just after midnight. The city streets were empty, quiet in a way that felt honest. My apartment greeted me the same way it always did: small, worn, imperfect, and completely mine. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and finally let myself feel it. Not the sadness. The understanding. I wasn't misunderstood. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't overlooked by accident. I had been assigned a role. I picked up my phone. The email from the gallery director was still open. He had asked if I could come out within the month. If I was serious about the work. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I called the one person who never treated my dreams like a phase. My aunt answered on the first ring. "You sound awake," she said gently. "I think I finally am." I told her everything. The trip, the planning behind my back, the messages, the realization that I had been useful but never valued. When I finished, she didn't rush to comfort me. She offered me something better. "I have a room," she said, above the studio. Ocean light in the mornings. "And the gallery you mentioned? It's close. Very close." I hesitated. "I can't just leave." "Yes," she said calmly. "You can. You're allowed to." I hung up before fear could talk me out of it. By sunrise, I was packing. Not everything, just what mattered. My camera, my laptop, clothes that felt like me. I left behind the apron they had given me years ago, the one that turned me into a permanent helper. I didn't need it anymore. 2 days later, I went back to my parents' house. Not to ask, to inform. They were exactly where I expected them to be. My mother organizing outfits. My sister scrolling through vacation plans. My father half listening to the news. "I won't be here next week," I said. My mother didn't look up. "We already sent you the schedule." "I'm leaving town." That got their attention. My sister laughed once. "You're joking." "I have a work opportunity." My mother's face hardened. "This is selfish." "No," I said evenly. "This is necessary. Family, responsibility, sacrifice." They used all the words they always used. This time they didn't land. My father finally spoke. "If you walk away from this, don't expect things to be the same." "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm going." The calls started that night.
Guilt. Fear.
Warnings dressed as concern. One message hit harder than the rest. "You'll end up alone." I stared at it. Then I smiled. Alone meant free. Alone meant space. Alone meant choice. I turned my phone off. At dawn, I loaded my car. It wasn't new. It wasn't impressive. But it started every time and never asked for more than I could give. As I drove west, something inside me loosened. I took my time. Slept in roadside motels. Ate breakfast at places where no one knew my story. Somewhere in the middle of the country, I pulled over and watched the sky change colors. I took a photo. The first one that didn't feel invisible. When I crossed into California, the air changed. The light softened. The ocean appeared like a promise kept. My aunt was waiting when I arrived. No questions. No conditions. Just open arms. The town felt unreal at first. Art everywhere. Quiet confidence. People building lives that actually fit them. The studio was behind a small cafe. Clay dust. Morning light. The smell of coffee and possibility. "You'll help in the mornings," my aunt said. "The rest of the day is yours." For the first time, work didn't feel like obligation. The next afternoon, I walked into the gallery. My hands were steady. The director studied my photographs in silence. Long silence. Then he looked up. "These aren't just images," he said. "They're statements." I didn't argue. I didn't apologize. I nodded. That night, I stood on the beach alone, camera at my side, watching waves erase footprints as fast as they were made. And I understood something simple and permanent. I hadn't abandoned my family. I had stopped abandoning myself. By noon, I had earned a few tips and more smiles than I'd had in months. No one there knew I had left my old life behind just days ago. And that felt strangely perfect. At 2 o'clock, I walked into the gallery. The man who greeted me wasn't intimidating at all. He wasn't in a sharp suit, and there was no cold stare, only calm confidence and eyes that truly listened. "I've seen your work," he said. "You don't photograph moments. You photograph meaning." He showed me around the space. White walls, natural light, quiet respect for every piece hanging there. Then he stopped in front of one image. A woman sitting alone, waiting, patient,
Strong.
"You notice people most walk past," he said. "That's rare." When he offered me a solo exhibition, my first reaction wasn't excitement. It was disbelief. Someone was offering to invest in me. I signed the agreement slowly, carefully. My name looked unfamiliar on official paper, like I was still getting used to seeing it belong somewhere important. I left the gallery holding proof that my work mattered, that I mattered. While I was building something new, my family was learning what life looked like without me. I didn't hear it all at once, just fragments. Messages asking about schedules, about routines, about details they had never bothered to learn themselves. I didn't reply. I was busy choosing frames, preparing prints, sitting for a quiet interview with a local magazine that wanted to feature emerging artists. 6 weeks later, the opening night arrived. The gallery was full. Soft music, conversation, people studying my work with focus and care. I stood there in a simple dress, feeling both exposed and powerful. "This one sold," my aunt whispered, pointing discreetly. Then another. Then another. Each small red felt unreal. Then the door opened, and suddenly the past walked in. My sister spotted me immediately. She smiled the way people smile when they want something to feel normal again. "We've been so worried," she said loudly. Dozens of eyes turned. "This is my exhibition," I said calmly. "Please don't make a scene." She looked around, finally noticing the walls,
The guests.
the labels. "You did all this?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Yes." She lowered her voice. "I need your help. I'm expecting again." There it was. Not an apology. Not pride.
A request.
"I'm not available," I said. Her face fell. "But you always are." I met her eyes. "Not anymore." She left soon after. So did the silence I'd carried my whole life. That night, I stood alone by the ocean, camera in hand, wind in my hair. For the first time, I wasn't invisible.
I was exactly where I belonged. My phone buzzed again.
I didn't have to look to know who it was. "Things are falling apart here," my sister Lena said when I answered. "Mark is working nonstop. Mom can't handle the kids alone. I need you." There it was again. Not "how are you?" Not "congratulations on your first solo show." Just need. Always need. I closed my eyes for a moment and looked around the gallery.
Soft lights.
My photographs lining the walls. People actually standing there discussing my work like it mattered. "Lena," I said calmly, "this is my opening night." "I know," she replied quickly, waving it off. "And it's nice. Really nice. But this can wait. Family can't." Before I could respond, a familiar sharp voice cut in. "She's not going anywhere." Aunt Helen stepped beside me, her posture straight, her tone firm. "She lives here now." Mark frowned. "With respect, Helen, this is between family." Helen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You mean the family that booked a beach vacation and left her behind to watch the kids? The family that called her help in messages she wasn't meant to see?" Lena froze. Around us, conversation slowed. People were listening now. A woman near the sculpture wall, the one who had just bought my subway portrait, turned slightly interested. "That's not fair," Lena whispered. "You're twisting things." "How else should it be taken?" the woman asked calmly, lifting her glass. "I am curious, because I just paid $2,500 for her work, and I'm wondering why anyone would expect her to abandon her career for unpaid labor." The room went quiet. Lena looked at me, panic in her eyes. "Can we talk privately?"
For years, I would have said yes.
For years, I would have stepped aside. Not tonight. I took one step forward, right into the center of my own exhibition. "I'm happy for your pregnancy," I said clearly. "Truly. But I won't be moving back to become your childcare plan." Mark opened his mouth. I didn't let him speak. "You can hire help. You can afford it. What you can't do is hire me, because I was never paid." A soft gasp rippled through the room. This isn't a phase, I continued, gesturing to the walls. This is my work. I built this while everyone assumed I was doing nothing. I pointed to the subway photograph. That piece sold for $2,500. I've sold 3 others tonight. My work has value. I have value. Silence. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole gallery followed. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady approval. I didn't smile.
I didn't bow.
I simply said, I wish you well, and walked away. 20 minutes later, the front door opened again. My parents. My mother in a pressed coat she wore only when appearances mattered. My father hovering behind her, already uncomfortable.
She didn't waste time.
You embarrassed us, she said sharply. We raised you better than this. I looked at her, surrounded by my work, my proof. No, I said calmly. You raised me to be useful, not visible. My father tried to soften it. Your mother means family should come first. I nodded. Then why was I never invited?
She scoffed.
That trip doesn't matter. It mattered to me. Her patience snapped. You don't have a husband. You don't have kids. What else are you doing? I took out my phone. I was hoping I'd never read this out loud, I said. But tonight feels right. I read the message she'd sent my sister months earlier. Keep her here. She has nothing important going on. At least she's useful. The room went still. My mother couldn't speak. I'm not doing this to shame you, I said quietly. I'm doing this so you understand why I left. I lowered the phone. You didn't lose a daughter, I said. You lost free labor. Someone near the back spoke up gently. I think, the woman said, it's time you let her have her night. My father took my mother's arm. They left without another word. I exhaled for the first time in years. That night, my work sold out. But more importantly, I finally stopped disappearing. You'll regret this, my mother said, her voice trembling with anger more than pain.
I shook my head slowly.
No, I said. I really won't. She turned sharply and walked out, my father following a step behind her, silent as always. The gallery door closed behind them, not loudly, not dramatically, just final.
Lena stayed behind.
Her makeup was smudged now, her confidence gone. She hugged herself, suddenly small. I didn't know you felt this way, she whispered. I thought you liked being needed. You didn't ask, I said gently. You just assumed. Her husband rested a hand on her shoulder, saying nothing for once. Maybe silence was the only honest thing he had left. I wish you a healthy delivery, I added, and happy children. But I won't live my life on standby anymore. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be equal. She nodded, crying quietly. I understand. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. Either way, it wasn't my responsibility anymore. When they left, the room exhaled. My aunt appeared beside me and pulled me into a brief hug. You okay? I laughed shakily. I just confronted my entire family in front of collectors. You did, she said, smiling. And you did it with grace. The gallery owner handed me a fresh drink. In 25 years, he said, I've never seen an opening night people talk about like this. Is that good? I asked. He grinned. Unforgettable is always good. By closing time, I'd sold 9 pieces.
9.
More money than I'd earned in months of safe, forgettable work. He handed me the sales summary, and I stared at the numbers, stunned. A private collector wanted a commission. A magazine editor wanted a follow-up interview. Another exhibition was already being discussed. I went upstairs to my small room above the cafe that night and laid the check on my desk. I didn't post it. I didn't brag. I just looked at my name printed clearly and let myself believe it. 2 months later, my days had a rhythm. Morning light through the window. Coffee poured for regulars who now called me the photographer. Afternoons spent editing, printing, creating. The next show had a name already. Edges. Images about lines, the ones you're told not to cross and the ones you finally do. The magazine article came out in fall. My story, softened but still true. Messages poured in from strangers who recognized themselves in it. I thought I was alone. You gave me courage. Thank you for showing me another way. My family reached out too, cautiously. My sister sent a photo of her newborn. I replied with congratulations and love from a distance. My mother left a voicemail asking when I'd come back to my senses. I didn't return it. My father sent an email. 3 sentences. I read the article. I see you. I am proud. That one stayed. Today, I'm sitting in my studio near the ocean. On the shelf are 2 cameras. One old, worn, carried me through survival. One new, bought with money I earned doing what I love. Both matter. My next exhibition opens next month. 15 new photographs. Each one about boundaries, not walls, but clarity. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. But I'm visible. And for the first time, I'm living a life that doesn't require permission. If you recognize yourself in this story, remember this. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's honesty. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You were never meant to disappear for anyone else's comfort. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't proving your worth. It's walking away and letting your life speak instead. And that is more than enough.